Hello, friends. This is Martin speaking. Please watch this episode to the end. In this episode, we will discuss three very important topics. BRICS Alliance, a strategic maneuver or a Western snub. Apple's diplomatic role, navigating the U.S.-China power play. The Biden factor, unpacking the impact on China's tech aspirations. Topic number 1, the expansion of the BRICS group, with the invitation extended to countries like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, has raised concerns among some Western commentators. These three nations, being key allies of the U.S. in the Middle East, would now be entering an economic bloc with geopolitical rivals of Washington, namely China and Russia. Some speculate if this move indicates a rejection of the West by Abu Dhabi, Riyadh, and Cairo. On the surface, these concerns seem valid. China, particularly eager for BRICS expansion, sees it as a potential counterweight to the U.S.-dominated Western bloc in international affairs. Russia, too, used the recent BRICS summit to voice its discontent with Western dominance of the global order, aligning with Chinese President Xi Jinping's criticism of U.S. hegemony. The inclusion of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Egypt in this bloc could be seen as a significant victory for China and Russia. Egypt, historically aligned with the U.S., and Saudi Arabia and the UAE having long-standing partnerships with the U.S., primarily through security and arms purchases, give weight to this perspective. Additionally, the UAE hosts American military bases, including the Al Dhafra Air Base. However, contrary to popular speculation and Chinese aspirations, the decision of these three Middle Eastern countries to join BRICS does not indicate a rejection of the West. Rather, it signifies their desire to assert their independence from the U.S., while not aligning themselves with China and Russia in an anti-Western alliance. The UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt still view the U.S. as a crucial ally, particularly in matters of security. However, they recognize the shift towards a multipolar world order and are no longer tied to a unipolar system that existed 3 decades ago. During the final years of the Cold War and its aftermath, these states found it advantageous to align firmly with the U.S. In the early 2000s, during the War on Terror, U.S. President George W. Bush famously said, "Either you are with us, or you are with the terrorists." In an era dominated by the U.S., with its military presence throughout the Middle East, it made sense for Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, and Cairo to firmly align with America. However, the global landscape has significantly transformed since then. The U.S. has faced military overextension during the War on Terror, while Russia has become more assertive and China's power has grown. Regionally, the U.S. remains present but less dominant in the Middle East. As a result, regional powers such as Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and to a lesser extent Egypt, have stepped in to fill the void left by diminished U.S. involvement, asserting their independence when their interests diverge from those of Washington. Moreover, China and Russia have capitalized on this opportunity by increasing their influence in the region. In recent years, Middle Eastern countries have adapted to this new reality. They continue to view the U.S. as a vital security partner, but also assert their right to pursue their own interests, even if they clash with Washington's agenda. Part of this adaptation involves working closely with other global powers, including China and Russia. All three aforementioned countries have joined China's Belt and Road Initiative, and none of them supported Western sanctions against Russia following the Ukraine invasion. However, none of these actions should be interpreted as rejecting the U.S. or the West. It merely showcases their ability to balance multiple important relationships simultaneously. Therefore, if the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt choose to join BRICS, it should be understood within this context. It represents their ongoing adaptation to the multipolar reality rather than taking sides in the escalating confrontation between the U.S., China, and Russia. These countries are learning to maximize their gains by walking a careful line between the global powers. It is crucial to note that their decision to join BRICS does not signify a severance of ties with the West, just as BRICS members South Africa, India, and Brazil maintain close relations with Washington. Instead, it reaffirms what Middle East observers have long recognized. The era of U.S. hegemony is over, and the region's players, including its close allies, are charting their own paths. In light of these developments, some Western commentators may lament the passing of an era where the U.S. could take these Middle Eastern powers for granted. However, the world has evolved, and the expansion of BRICS should not cause undue alarm. It doesn't create a multipolar global order, but rather reflects the current reality. The UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt will remain steadfast allies of the West, much like their BRICS counterparts South Africa, India, and Brazil maintain close ties with Washington. Their inclusion in BRICS underscores that the era of U.S. hegemony has long faded and regional players, including their allies, are navigating the changing landscape in their own unique ways. Now we would like to hear from you, the audience. What are your thoughts on this topic? Please share your opinions in the comments below. Topic number 2. Apple's diplomatic role. Navigating the U.S.-China power play. Apple's market value has faced a significant decline recently due to concerns about its business operations in China. Reports have indicated that the Chinese government is banning the use of iPhones and other foreign-branded devices in central government agencies. And there is a possibility of extending this ban to state-owned enterprises and government-backed entities. In a state-led economy with a large population, this could potentially affect a substantial number of individuals. China has a significant number of state-owned workers, approximately 56.3 million in 2021, who receive wages above the national average, making them an attractive market for Apple's premium devices. With Apple shipping around 230 million iPhones globally annually, losing a portion of this potential customer base could have a notable impact, especially considering the sluggish growth prospects of the global smartphone market. Adding to the challenges, Chinese tech giant Huawei Technologies has successfully launched a new smartphone that reportedly offers 5G-like speed, despite facing a U.S. ban on advanced chips required for such devices. This new smartphone, the Mate 60 Pro, quickly sold out and received numerous back orders. Its release conveniently coincided with Apple's anticipated unveiling of this year's iPhone lineup. As a consequence of these developments, Apple's stock price has experienced a nearly 7% decline over the past 2 days, resulting in a loss of approximately $194 billion in market value. However, it is important to note that there are still many uncertainties regarding the reported iPhone bans and their potential long-term implications. Additionally, China may have some interest in not causing excessive harm to a major local employer, particularly during a time of rising unemployment. It is worth mentioning that one Chinese city alone allegedly employs over 1 million workers involved in building Apple products or related jobs. Nonetheless, it is crucial to recognize that these recent challenges are not the first Apple has faced in China, which currently represents its third largest geographical segment, accounting for 19% of the company's total revenue over the past 12 months. Apple experienced production disruptions due to COVID-19 restrictions and social unrest in China, resulting in delayed shipments of iPhone Pro models during a crucial sales period. In an effort to diversify its manufacturing footprint, Apple has expanded production in countries such as India and Vietnam. Despite these efforts, China remains the company's largest manufacturing base, and the iPhone continues to be Apple's primary source of revenue, contributing to 52% of its total revenue. Ironically, this dependence on China makes Apple vulnerable in the ongoing economic tensions between the United States and China. The U.S. has implemented strict restrictions on shipments of advanced chips and related technologies to China, prompting China to retaliate with its own restrictions on U.S. businesses, including memory chip maker Micron. China has also employed other measures to penalize U.S. firms, such as delaying approval of major mergers and acquisitions, which disrupt the growth plans of prominent U.S. semiconductor companies like Qualcomm, Intel, and Applied Materials. The repercussions of these developments are not limited to Apple alone. Given its status as one of the world's largest chip buyers for its devices, the broader tech industry has also experienced a ripple effect. The PHLX semiconductor index declined by 2%, and suppliers of key radio frequency chips used in iPhones, such as Qorvo and Skyworks, saw their shares decrease by more than 7% each. Similarly, U.S. personal computer manufacturers with significant manufacturing facilities in China, such as HP and Dell, faced a decline of over 2% in their share prices. Considering the extensive impact of the U.S.-China economic tensions on Apple and the broader tech industry, it raises questions about which companies will navigate this high-stakes situation successfully. We welcome your thoughts and opinions on this topic. Please feel free to share your comments below. Topic number 3. The Biden Factor. Unpacking the impact on China's tech aspirations. Chinese leader Xi Jinping has expressed his vision of China becoming a global technological superpower, with a particular emphasis on the role of semiconductors in achieving this goal. However, the Biden administration's export controls, enacted in October 2022, have placed significant obstacles in China's path towards achieving its ambition. These controls aim to restrict China's access to high-end chips and hamper its capability to develop its own semiconductor industry. One of the notable consequences of these export controls is the decline of Chinese tech firms. For instance, Yangtze Memory Technologies, YMTC, China's largest memory chip maker, has been forced to cut jobs and downsize its operations. YMTC was on track to double its market share in global flash memory chips by 2027, but was hindered by the export controls. Other phone chip-making initiatives in China, including one under Oppo, have also faced difficulties, leading to downsizing and cutbacks in bonuses for employees. Furthermore, China's chip imports have experienced a significant decline, indicating the impact of these measures on the country's tech sector. The U.S. export controls, in conjunction with sanctions and tariffs, are part of a broader strategy aimed at inflicting economic pain on China. This strategy represents a shift in the U.S.-China dynamic, allowing the United States to be on the offensive and assert its own technological supremacy. Economic analysts suggest that these measures have been successful in grinding China down and have resulted in a struggling Chinese economy. China has been quick to blame the United States for its economic woes, with the Chinese ambassador to the United States pointing to the drop in U.S.-China trade as a direct consequence of U.S. tariffs and export restrictions. However, the U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo has made it clear that national security concerns take precedence and that the United States is not willing to negotiate on such matters. The U.S. measures are specifically aimed at limiting China's military capacity and countering state-backed hacking attempts. The mistrust between the two nations has led to a breakdown in military communications and strained bilateral relations. The United States has adopted the term de-risking to describe its steps towards reducing reliance on China for critical supplies, rather than using a more confrontational term like decoupling. This choice of language helps to avoid overt conflicts with China and has facilitated the inclusion of European allies. During the G7 summit, the leading industrial nations agreed on measures to counter China's economic coercion and build supply chain resilience, which was deemed a significant achievement. The United States sees its actions as driving towards a best-in-the-world semiconductor ecosystem by the end of the decade, while China's technological progress appears to be lagging behind due to the constraints imposed by U.S. export controls. China has retaliated against the U.S.-imposed controls, but with limited success so far. For instance, attempts to disrupt the supply chain for gallium and germanium, essential materials for chip manufacturing, have not had a significant impact on international semiconductor companies. Moreover, the effort to establish the BRICS coalition as a counterbalance to U.S. dollar dominance faces challenges due to a lack of common interests among member states. The U.S. strategy has gained support from other nations, as evidenced by the joint statement from the trilateral summit between the United States, Japan, and South Korea. These nations have denounced China's aggression and pledged to coordinate policies towards securing critical technology supply chains. Such developments indicate a growing coalition against China. The impact of U.S. policies is evident not only in the technological domain but also in the investment landscape. Foreign direct investment into China has experienced a significant decline, while U.S. firms have increased their domestic hiring, particularly in the chip-making and electric vehicle battery sectors. China's hostile environment, marked by its zero-COVID policy, border clashes, regulatory crackdowns, and anti-spying laws has contributed to diminished investor confidence. Consequently, China is witnessing a notable exodus of millionaires seeking to emigrate in search of more investment-friendly environments. It is important to note that the United States has set the stage for a potential meeting between President Joe Biden and Chinese leader Xi Jinping. However, the Chinese Ministry of State Security has stated that such a meeting is contingent upon the United States displaying sufficient sincerity. The divergent interests and circumstances make it challenging for the two nations to align. As the United States maintains its firm stance towards China, it is evident that the concept of de-risking has become a reality. The Biden administration's export controls, in conjunction with other measures, have successfully hindered China's high-tech ambitions and technological advancement. The impact of these restrictions is not limited to the economic realm, but has also strained diplomatic relations between the two nations. The question now arises: what are your thoughts on these developments? Please share your opinions in the comments below.